Burnout is so different to everyone. So as best you can, communicate them and ask them, look, what do you need right now? How can I help you right now? What do you actually need at this present time? Because I can see that you're struggling. You're not yourself at the moment. How can I support you? Rather than just putting it all back on them and saying, you're on this journey by yourself.
This week, I'm joined by not one, but two passionate voices at the forefront of workplace culture change, Lauren McGee and Jason Marshall. In this conversation, we unpack their personal stories, what they've learned about communication, boundaries, and love languages. Whether you're a leader, a team member, or someone who's been close to burnout yourself, this conversation is filled with insights, strategies, and powerful reminders that empowered people create empowered workplaces.
If people are going through dark times at the moment, hopefully you'll see it in the future as a pivotal moment in your life where you will create change, or it will change the way you do life, it will change the way you bring up your children, it will change the way you talk to your colleagues, the way you work, and you'll be that ripple effect. So it's actually a beautiful moment.
Lauren and Jason, welcome to Share.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Good to be here. Good to be back.
As we were just saying, welcome back, Lauren, and it's Jason's first time on the other side of the screen.
Yeah, no, it's excited to be on this seat rather than your seat, Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is awesome. And you guys have been really busy, and we're obviously going to dive into what you've been doing and some of the things you've got coming up. But Jason, we haven't had you on the podcast, but I'd love to start by getting a bit of your story around what's led you to today. Why are you so passionate about workplace wellbeing and people's health?
Yeah, for sure. I suppose I started sort of my career as a teacher, and I was expecting it to be that sort of 9 till 3. You rock up at school at 8:45, you can leave by 3:10, and everything is going to be great. How good, you get all these holidays. I soon realized that was definitely not the case. I think it was about 3 months into that career, I was like, oh, okay, I've bitten off a lot here. But I thought, no, this is still great. Absolutely love teaching the kids, and I could be a big kid myself. But what I soon realized that my colleagues around me were just crashing and burning, literally. They were dragging their feet to work. Then when they were there, they didn't have any emotion. They would just get in, get the job done. They'd stay after work, like working, take piles of work home and doing it all over again. And I actually remember, Lauren, you saying once that, Jason, you're not spending time with me. You're not spending quality time with your family anymore because all you're doing is thinking about work. And I thought, oh yeah, very true. And at the same time, I had people coming to me at work literally in tears because they didn't know where to go from here. They were just literally burnt out. They were stressed. Their workload
Trapped in the cycle.
Yeah, literally. And the same thing was happening to them as well. So I was like, how can we solve this issue, not only for myself and for my family, but then for my colleagues around me? And at the time, all I realized and all I thought I could do was go to university and study my Masters of Leadership. And I had this whole thing of going in there to say, yep, I'm going in here to find the solution, in inverted commas. And I came across a subject in neuroscience and human behavior and fell in love with it. And at the same time was going through some personal development journey as well, which was also diving into that whole neuroscience and human behavior side of things as well. So I was caught into this thing. I thought, this makes a lot of sense now. Why we are feeling this way. And like you said before, in that sort of washing machine and in that cycle and in that pattern. And I sort of left that, finished that degree, went back into schools, and I thought, okay, this is great. I can now implement things here at this school, but how do I set it up as a broader scale now? How do I implement this to not just my colleagues, but colleagues in different schools as well? So I stepped away and did some coaching for teachers, essentially to help them get into a leadership position. But what I realized, I was just teaching a lot of well-being initiatives, essentially. So how to manage your stress, how to avoid burnout, how to ensure that when you go to work, you're absolutely enjoying work rather than dragging your feet. And at the same time, Lauren was doing Workplace Performance and Wellbeing Institute. And we sort of had like two outputs of businesses, and we're going, well, why are we doing two different things? Why are we running two different businesses, but running sort of very similar things? So we thought, let's just join forces. We brought the arm of education into our business, and here we are now. Yeah. Jumping into organizations, helping them with their culture, their retention, and the performance of their staff. So
yeah. And you make a real good point there as well, Jason, around, when you're coaching someone you're coaching someone on well-being, right?
Mm.
At the end of the day, they can only go as far as the leadership or the organizational structure and support that's in place, right? And I know you guys are both like really passionate about we can kind of help your staff and we can help your team kind of, improve their wellness. But what are you actually doing as leaders, and what are you doing as an organization to actually support an environment where they can nurture, they can put their hand up and say, hey, I'm struggling, I need a bit of help, or, I'm struggling emotionally, or I've got things going on in my life, and providing that support. And it's really about getting that kind of, I suppose, awareness a lot up the chain so that, you can kind of get that real groundswell of support in the grassroots.
Yeah, 100%,
absolutely.
100%. And one of our big beliefs is that empowered people create empowered businesses or empowered organizations. So, like you said, yes, we help the individuals, but we're also helping the whole organization as a whole as well, starting at sort of that top level and then filtering that through to staff as well.
Yeah, perfect. Now, Lauren, obviously, we recorded a great episode and we heard a lot about your story, but for many, it might be the first time that they're hearing from you. So I'd love you to give a snapshot on what's brought you here as well today.
Yeah, and Jace didn't actually touch on my story, which was good. Sometimes we have a bit of overlap with the stories because we both...
He takes away your thunder.
I think he builds on my thunder, Steve. I wouldn't say Jace takes it away because it's an only good interlude or a good segue into my story. But, Jason was going through that time of change and, realizing, I guess, what was happening in his environment, that he wanted to create change. And then during that time, I was working as a paramedic. I just started brand new paramedic. And I'd done 2 degrees, so I've been at uni for a very long time. I feel like maybe some of your listeners have done something similar, and you sort of pedestal that job, right? Like you worked so hard for it and you could feel yourself in that job and position, and you were so excited, you're fresh, you're brand new, you got this new energy. So I started out, and then kind of similar to Jace, I guess, I knew what I was getting myself into, but not. And, I was doing 14-hour shifts, exhausted. It wasn't that long into it where I kind of had a moment too of just taking a step back and looking and thinking, wow, okay, things need to change. Like it wasn't just me that was going through my own burnout, but it was also colleagues, but they were silently suffering. I would say that they were just pushing through, but not wanting to admit to themselves even or other people that they were just pushing through and that they were struggling in some kind of way. But you could feel it energetically, and you could tell because they were quite negative about the job or quite negative about situations. They didn't have a lot of resilience. I felt like, little things would happen and it would create a reaction within them. And I was noticing that happening obviously within me too. And it hit a point where I know I've spoken a little bit about my burnout, where I had to really reflect and go, okay, something needs to change, because if I keep going the way I'm going now, it's a bit scary where that will lead. I had about 8 months journey of working on my own health. And to be honest, the Western medicine wasn't really working for me at the time. I was 23. They wanted me to go on hormone replacement therapy because I had no estrogen and no progesterone. I had no cycle for 8 months because of what I was going through. But I had no history, nothing wrong as such. So I wanted to get to the root cause. I turned to yoga, meditation. Took me a while to fall in love with it. It's both are extremely challenging practices in their own. But yeah, I loved how it made me feel. I loved how I could connect in with myself, how I could feel grounded and calm. And it was the first time I probably felt that way. I've always been a high achiever, go, go, go from the start. Definitely been brought up, I guess, that way too, which I'm grateful for because it's serving for me now as well in the business, but then also learning some new skills to go with that. Like you can be a high achiever, but then also know capacity, and also what you need to do outside of work or business that's going to help you achieve. And it was yoga and meditation for me at the time. Also learning a lot about nutrition and hormones and what it means to be a woman and what you need and everything else along with that I'd never really been open to that kind of holistic health world because I was so deep in the Western world. So then I became a yoga and meditation teacher because I wanted to spread that out to other people. I thought people need this, they need to feel this sense of connection and calm. There's a lot of power in that. When you feel calm, you're no longer reactive. So became that and started teaching lots of classes and full day, half day retreats, and seeing the ripple effect of this, people leaving the class just completely different people, sleeping a lot better, feeling calm, feeling focused. And then I started teaching online, actually, initially for women on stress management, on how they can be that high achiever, be that corporate worker and go up the ranks in their career, but then also have good health and well-being and manage their stress. So started with that and then said goodbye to the paramedic, career that I was on. And then, started Workplace Performance Wellbeing Institute, I guess similar to you, Jace, like wanting to create a bigger impact. And I knew that yoga was helping people, but I thought going to 1 or 2 classes a week isn't really the solution. It's a good start and it's a great lifestyle choice if people are going to make it as part of their lifestyle. But I thought there's definitely more to this that I can give, especially with my background and my knowledge and, paramedicine and the human anatomy and things. So we've kind of combined your expertise, my expertise to create the organization that we're running now.
Yeah, perfect. And I'd love to ask you both as well, going through both these kind of burnouts. Now, you guys have gone through kind of this burnout and this realization a lot younger than many do, right? Many are in their kind of late 30s, in their 40s, 50s, and they hit this real burnout. And I think that's actually a real positive for you because you guys have got an amazing life ahead. You've already realized this. But talk to me about the dynamics of you both going through that burnout and how that was from a relationship perspective.
It's a good point. A good point that it would affect the relationship. I think we went through it at slightly different times. That was kind of helpful because then the other person could help and pick up the other person, be that support in a way. But I think we've always been quite good at communicating what we're going through in the relationship and how we're feeling in ourselves and what we kind of need and voicing that, which has obviously gotten better as we do more personal development and development on ourselves as we grow. So I feel like it wasn't detrimental, but I also know that when you don't have much to give, you're exhausted. There's only so much you can do within the relationship. So I know that was a dark time. And during my time, I was not myself at all. And I remember you saying to me, like, I'm actually really concerned because you're almost depressed. And I've never been depressed before. But I just had blunted emotions. So I literally couldn't feel anything. I said to Jace, this is meant to excite me and I feel nothing. Like I'm meant to be happy for this and I feel nothing, whatever the situation was. Or we go out and do stuff. And I said, I normally enjoy this and I don't care. Like I actually just do not care about this. I'm looking at a beautiful scenery or walking along the beach, being with you, Jace, and it's like nothing. So that was definitely obviously an effect on the relationship because I wasn't emotionally there at all.
Yeah, I think for me as well, I was fortunate enough, if that's the way you want to put it, that I realized that I was on this slippery slope to burnout. So I caught it early, but then threw myself back to university and gone, okay, well, here's some more stress. So then I think what I learned through that time, and then going through my own journey, then you sort of started going through it as well. I saw the early signs through Lauren as well. And exactly what you said, what I observed, you would come home from a shift at a paramedic and you were telling me some of the stories and I'm on the edge of my seat, like, this is so exciting. Tell me more. That happened. How did you get out of that? And then Lauren's it's very monotone. It was very flat. And that was one of my first signs. I thought, okay, something's not right here. And then, it was sort of quite a slippery slope that you went down. And I
think we picked it up early because it was only probably 2 months in. And I thought, okay, I need to at least see the doctor and get a blood test done and see what internally is going on because not normally had any issues with my cycle either. So there was a few things happening. So I think that was a good thing for me. And I would recommend obviously to your listeners is getting those checks in regularly anyway, even if you think, oh, nothing's happening, just see your GP and get the full bloods done, get those sorts of things done regularly because you can see the signs before it leads into something a bit more detrimental. And hopefully, don't get to that point where you're on like a hospital bed, but you can actually go, oh, wow, this, my cortisol level's high, my hormones are not quite right. Okay, how can I get help for that?
Yeah. But I think to go back to your question, Steve, to sort of round it off, like Lauren said, our communication was pretty good. Yes, there were times where we just sort of fell apart. And, looking at that, they were probably the best times to reflect on. But I think also knowing that, okay, Lauren just needs space right now. Let's just go and give her half an hour to let her go for a walk by herself. And it's, sometimes I still fall in that trap. It's like, do you want me to come with you? Are you sure? And it's like, just let Lauren go. So I think knowing, like, communicating really well and then knowing when each other needs that break, particularly now working together as well. It's, yes, we've got our set tasks to do. Yes, there are things where we come together, but there's also going to be that time where actually I need my own time now. I think I'm going to go for a walk. No, I don't want anyone to come with me. I just want to put headphones in, go in the sunshine and enjoy it.
We've got new challenges now, haven't we?
Yeah.
We're doing everything together now.
Yeah. And time, like, obviously it's interesting, like going through my burnout and going through the journey that I went through, it's a very lonely journey. And it's hard. You can't really show up for anyone else. And you'll both understand this, and anyone listening that's kind of gone through this, is you can't really show up for someone else when you can't even have the energy to show up, like for yourself. Right. So it's like, you've got nothing. Right. And it's really hard. And I think probably one of my insights through my journey, and you'd probably agree, is the quicker you kind of pick up on it, the quicker you actually kind of say to your partner, hey, I'm not feeling great, or I'm not feeling right, or this is how I'm feeling. Because a lot of the time, I know for me in my relationship, it was how I was feeling. You feel a lot of guilt and shame and embarrassment, and you kind of don't understand the feelings you're going through, but you don't verbalize that. So, for me at night, like I'd be like 6:45, I'd be like, I'm going to bed right now. And, my wife was like seeing that as, oh, you don't want to spend time with me, you're just going to bed, and really that disconnection. Now, that's what I needed. It took a little while before I kind of worked out, actually, I've got to verbalize, hey, I'm not feeling that great. I'm going to go to bed, but that means, I'll wake up tomorrow and I'll be better. It's what I needed. But it's interesting. You've both kind of gone through these journeys and having that understanding, because I think there'd be a lot of listeners that would be listening at the moment going, and I have these conversations almost on a daily basis, is, my partner's burnt out, and have you got any tips or advice for, each of you? I'd love to hear. If someone's sitting there and going, my partner's burnt out, is not in a great place, what would you recommend?
Yeah, great question again. I think if I could jump in here first, I think instead of saying, my partner's burnt out and using that as an excuse, yes, your partner might be burnt out 100%, but if that's stopping you from doing anything else, it's like, oh no, I can't do that because, my partner's burnt out. That's when I want you to look at yourself and go, what can I do to support my partner here? Rather than just making that as an excuse for you not showing up for yourself and you not showing up to do your work or your things that you enjoy doing. So that would be my first thing. Like, make sure you're looking after yourself first. And then the second thing, I would just, as best you can, communicate them and ask them, look, I can see that you're struggling at the moment. What do you need right now? How can I help you right now? Rather than just guessing, because there was definitely a period of, our relationship where I was just guessing, and I would bring home the chocolates, I'd bring home the flowers, I would cook the dinner. But then at the time, that's not what Lauren wanted. All she wanted was me just to sit there and be present and actually simply listen without giving the advice, just a soundboard. That's all I needed to be. So I think, and because burnout is so different to everyone, some people might just want dinner cooked. Some people might want the flowers. But then like Lauren, all she needed was that soundboard. So I think asking, what do you actually need at this present time? Because I can see that you're struggling. You're not yourself at the moment. How can I support you? Rather than just putting it all back on them and saying, you're on this journey by yourself. You go and see therapy, go and get some help. Well, how can I help you right now? So that would be my two things for sure.
Yeah, great.
I think, like you said, burnout's so different for people, and also people's family dynamics and situation at home is very different. Like, I think it depends where the burnout's sort of triggered and happening from. Is it a workplace thing or is it a family thing? We don't have children, so I think it's hard for us to maybe resonate with people that have children and mortgages and other pressures and things. So there's a lot of different avenues that the burnout could be coming from. So I think maybe having a moment of reflection as a couple of what can you alleviate for that person, because there are so many different moving pieces in people's lives and everyone's dynamic's different. So I think that's one thing, but also as the partner of the person, because you love them so much. I think, especially if it's the male looking at a woman, they want to fix, right? Like you men definitely
We're
want
fixers.
yeah. So I think I felt that from Jace at that time. So what can I fix? And then maybe you took it on yourself a bit of like I'm not a supportive partner because I can't fix the problem. So I think as the partner, it's lessening the pressure on you. It's not your job to fix things, and it's not your responsibility either, or your issue as such. It's not, the blame is not on the partner as such. But I think, having that discussion whenever they're ready of what can we alleviate on your plate right now, because burnout, your plate is just so full and it's just overflowing, and then you can't handle it. So you're past the point of being able to cope and manage your own time and responsibilities. So can you get some help looking after the kids? Can you get some help around the house? Because it's a holistic approach in your life. And then I guess lessening the pressure on both of you. It's a journey. You don't have to fix the burnout. You don't have to get rid of the burnout as quick as we can because we've got to get back to normal life. It's okay, this is something I'm experiencing, and it's okay to experience that, and we'll just go with it, alleviate some things.
It's a process that you need to go through together.
Exactly. And it's a beautiful journey because I'm so glad I went through it. I'm sure you are glad what you went through, and because it brought us to what we're doing now. So if people are going through dark times at the moment, hopefully you'll see it in the future as a pivotal moment and a moment in your life where you will create change, or it will change the way you do life. It will change the way you bring up your children. It will change the way you talk to your colleagues, the way you work, and you'll be that ripple effect because you don't want people to go through it. So it's actually a beautiful moment, but when you're in that, it doesn't feel like it. But I don't know if that's helpful, but
No, I think that's fantastic. And I think it's like a workout, right? Like, sometimes going through a workout can be tough, but after it, you emerge stronger. And I think whatever challenge people go through, whether it's burnout, whether it's a mental illness, anything like that, coming out the other side, they're stronger they have more knowledge, they have that experience, and they have that deep understanding of what they've been through. So they can also it gives them more awareness and insight and reflection to assist others as well, right? And both you have gone through that journey and now you're assisting. Before we move on to the next question, I just wanted to ask, obviously you work together and you noted, okay, we spend a lot of time together, but talk to me the difference and the kind of boundaries that you've had to put in from working together versus kind of quality time together.
Yeah.
Can I start on this one?
Sure. That's a fantastic. Steve, you're full of the good questions. I love it.
I love chatting to Steve. Steve's the best. I feel like it was definitely a transition because, we met working together at Woolworths back in the day. Back in the day. But that was different, right? Now we're literally side by side desks working from home a lot of the time. And then, out at workplaces delivering workshops together, and the business is together. So I feel like at the beginning, it was really tough, especially as I kind of semi-created it, I guess. And then you kind of came in, and then it was a big adjustment of me having to let go a lot because I thought, this is my baby and this is my thing and you're doing your thing. And I was stuck in my head and in my ego a lot. And I thought, okay, let's let down the walls and let you in. And then we need to readjust because now you've got your set roles and I've got my set roles. So I think that's something that's really helped us is having set roles. Instead of both of us trying to dabble in the same or similar tasks and then getting on each other's feet, if that makes sense, and stepping on each other. It just makes no sense. So finding your strengths. So your strengths are completely different to mine. My strengths are completely different, which is why we work really well together. Don't go in business together if you're both the same business archetype and you have the same strengths because you're not going to work. You're just going to butt heads. And our business mentor, Morgan, he said, well, you've both got different complementary strengths and you're both completely different archetypes. You're more the implementer, I'm more the visionary. So we work really well together. So I think getting to know each other more, and like you would in any workplace as well, like getting our personality types, and I'm more the dominant personality type, was you're more the
that's the socialite and the one who the implement. I call it the implementer.
Yeah.
Lauren comes up with this grand vision and goes, okay, can you go and implement that? And so, okay. And then I'll go in the back end and I'll, do all the systems type thing.
You're the systems guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it works well, knowing your strengths and weaknesses, communicating that, setting the different roles. And then I guess within the relationship, which is a challenge for us because we love what we do. So I think it's not just a job, it's a passion, is finding times where we go, we're not talking about business right now because we're not really great at that at the moment, especially as we've got the big thing happening at the end of the year, which I know we'll talk about, but we're just so passionate and we have ideas all the time. You know, we go for a walk. It's like, wow, have you thought about this? Or did we get that done? Or did we message that person? Or we need to talk to that person, you know? So that's hard.
The best thing that we've implemented even in the past 3 months is on a Wednesday night, it's not a night where we talk about business at all. The office door is closed and it's time for us. You know, we have dinner we always have dinner together. I think that's the one thing that we've always implemented is we're always having dinner together, unless of course someone is out doing whatever or they're away. But over that dinner time, we don't talk about business if we can. But the Wednesday night, it's a time where we just chill out. You know,
we don't talk about business at dinner for sure.
Yeah, we don't talk about business on a Wednesday night. We literally either we're out doing something or we are, you know, watching TV, doing something for ourselves essentially, but together. And at least one day over the weekend as well. You know, at the moment we're training for Kokoda. So we go out for a hike once a week and it's just a time to get in nature and just enjoy each other's company. But then at the same time, like Lauren said, sometimes you get these downloads and we've sort of got this, I don't know how you say it, but like a subtle, like, can we talk about business now? Okay, let me try it. And then we'll talk about for business for maybe half an hour. And then it's okay, let's go back to, you know, look at the place we're in right now. We're in the middle of a rainforest, listen to the birds, you know, how cool, like the cool air that we can feel and things like that. So I think the biggest thing to help us in our like relationship and business is definitely the Wednesday night. That was an absolute game changer. But knowing when we leave the office as best as we can, we don't talk about business. You know, we can close. It's definitely tricky and it's something we're still learning to do for sure. But, you know, close the door. That's where work is. It's in the office.
It's funny because you're very much like that, right? But I'll admit I'm not, because I don't understand why we have to be. Like, I don't understand why we should do that, because I think when you close the door, because it's our business and our passion and it's our mission, it's not 9 till 5, right? So I feel like you're stopping the ideas, you're stopping the creativity if we just go, that's the time we talk about business, because then I'll be itching and it's like, okay, I can write it down.
Well, that's because you're the visionary one.
Exactly. So it's like if you stop me and put me in a cage, you're locking up the lion, to be honest, the lioness, right? And if you lock up the lioness, you're locking up the potential that we can have in our business, because that is my role within the business.
Yeah. But I suppose,
you know, so I do struggle with that.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why we
Steele's like, is this a mediation?
Nah. Thanks for being the third person here, Steve. I really needed you. No. But I think I've never not shut you down unless it's, you know, 10 past 10 at night. It's like, Lauren, I just need some sleep right
Jace
now.
Doesn't do well after 9 o'clock.
After 9 o'clock or before like 7, don't talk to me.
No.
Particularly about the
8 o'clock.
Maybe before the coffee.
Yep.
No, Jason's, But that's good though that I think we work well because we're yin and yang, and you know, you can ground me and go, okay, this is our time not to talk. And I go and push you out of your comfort zone and go, actually, we can do a bit more and we can talk about things. So yeah, it's a work in progress. I feel like we're doing really well in it, actually.
And I think that's a really good segue. You talk about your different archetypes and your different personalities. And so let's kind of move into the corporate space. You guys do a lot of workshops. You work with a lot of organizations around implementing wellness and focusing on performance and how that kind of affects their health and how you can get better productivity. Talk to me about how organizations and how you see organizations implementing or what you suggest in regards to being able to kind of unlock the best version of their team members when everyone is different.
Yeah, I love that. I think one thing that, you know, shocks the corporate world when we talk about this is the love languages. You know, a lot of people just think, oh, the love languages are only in a relationship. But what happens when you bring it into work is people feel seen, valued, and heard. You know, we've spoken at workshops before, and even our networking events we've spoken to it about as well, is find out your colleagues' love languages and then do something once a week, once a month, whatever it is, but regularly to do with their love language. So if it's gifts, bring them a coffee in the morning, you know, once a month, and see that, you know, they light up. physical touch is always an interesting one, particularly when we talk about, with HR and things.
Yeah.
It might be a high five. It might be a handshake. It might just be, a tap on the shoulder. You're doing a great job. Just those little things. So love language is 100% one of the things that I always go to, and it does shock people. But if you literally just Google like workplace love languages, then the workplace test comes up. There is a slightly different test, obviously, to a relationship. So that's definitely one of them for me.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, I feel like just getting to know your people rather than have them as numbers, which I know gets harder as the organization gets bigger. But then I think you'd have those managers that would really lead that team. And they kind of should know their team a bit more in terms of, what's their personality type? What drives them? What's their motivators? What demotivates them at the same time? What do they need to feel, seen and heard? That's massive in performance, because you can set their KPIs, but if there's nothing really driving them to get those KPIs done, then you're going to see a lack of performance. And you might go, well, Johnny's lazy, it's not getting it done. But if he's not feeling valued, seen or heard, or if, you're not communicating in a way that suits his personality type, then he's not going to get that performance KPI done as well. So there's a lot of factors. I think it's really coming back to human-centeredness. At the end of the day, we're not robots. We are human with a personality and with things going on both at work and outside of work. And I think if you can really bring that human-centered approach to it, not just a computer getting the KPIs done, then the performance will go hand in hand once you lead with human-centered.
Yeah, and I love how you brought up like the motivation, what motivates people. Because I think in the corporate world, we get caught up of saying, okay, everyone's motivated by money. So if you get XYZ KPI done, you'll get your bonus at the end of the year. Now, I know that, there's probably about 50% of my circle, they're not actually motivated by money. They're motivated by perhaps freedom. It's like, well, I don't want the bonus. I don't want the 10K bonus at the end of the financial year. Just give me 2 days off and I'll be happy. It's actually, at the end of the day, it could be saving the business money because it's not that 10K bonus, but at the same time, it's also helping, if we go back to Johnny, it's also helping Johnny because all that Johnny wants is 2 days off to spend time with his family, to go on the family holiday. It's not necessarily the money. So finding out what your employees value and what motivates them for sure is a big game changer when it comes to performance.
Yeah, perfect. So what are you seeing as the biggest challenges in corporate workplaces right now affecting wellness and wellbeing for team members?
It's a good question. There's one that we get asked a lot, and I think it depends on what angle we're coming from, who we're speaking to within the workplace. I think there's obviously still a challenge, unfortunately, that some workplaces don't see it as a value. They don't see that working on the team's well-being and their stress management is a leading indicator of performance. So that's still something that we're coming up against.
Yeah, as I see it as more as a nicety rather than, that would be nice when we hit XYZ.
Yeah, people feel like they're too busy to be able to prioritize it. So there's still resistance there. So I think that's a common trend still, unfortunately, and that we're fighting against in some way because we can't get into the workplace if they're not open to even having a conversation. So that's definitely something. I don't know if you can comment first.
Yeah, I suppose when we're talking to an individual, it's like, wow, we really need this in my business. We really need this in my workplace. Great. Can you connect me with the manager? Sure enough, they do that. We explain what we do and how we can help your business in terms of culture, performance, retention. It's like, yeah, look, that is something, but at the moment, we've got this in at the moment. Or it might be, we're coming to the end of the financial year, budgets are a little bit tight. It's like, yeah, okay, budgets may be tight, but imagine when we come in and then performance of your staff increases, how much more cash flow you would get into your organization. And then that's when you can start to see the almost like the realizations like, okay. But it's that's one of the first barriers that we hit for sure is, no, we're waiting for XYZ, or we're waiting for the team to get bigger. Well, you don't need to wait until your team gets bigger. We've worked with teams of 10 before, and literally in their organizations, a team of 10. And then because we've helped that 10, they're in their thriving state because then they've been able to scale from there. It is a lot harder, and I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's a lot harder to scale when your team is not thriving.
Before we get back into the episode, from time to time you might have a burning question, a guest recommendation, a comment or some feedback, which I always appreciate. If so, I'd love to continue the conversation after this episode, so let's connect. I'm easy to find, but the best place to engage and connect is on Instagram, @TheSteveHodgson. But that's enough from me. Let's get back into the episode. Yeah. When you think about it, if you have an organization that say, hey, Jace, hey, Lauren, we've got 1,500 people and we need to change our workplace performance and wellbeing culture. It's a lot harder, right, when you're kind of a business that's kind of just massive compared to a business that starts and maybe they only have 3 or 4, right? But if you can get that culture and the foundations laid, when they do grow their business into multiple locations or whatever industry it will be different. But then they can build with that from the start, rather than going, oh, how do we implement this? And it's like, okay, you got 1,500 people in your organization. Wow, this is not going to be able to just flick a switch and we fix it. This is going to kind of take some time. But they're like, okay, so can you put that into a 45-minute session?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, can we get all 1,500 in one room? Oh no, we don't have the space for that. Okay.
Yeah, you get it all, hey. It is interesting. And I think that makes sense. They don't understand, and our job to understand.
Correct, yeah.
But yeah, we get that too. Steve is like, can you fix all of our 10, 20, 30, 50, 100-year problems in just one session? It's like, no, this is an ongoing journey. So it's just about us, I guess, showing what's possible and being that sort of role model in the space of like, when you can do it and be the, show the journey, then people will become on board. It is a slower process, I think, to get people on board sometimes. But once you've had a few, like for us, we get a few rounds under our belt and they go, oh, did they work with you? Yeah. Oh, okay. And then it gets them thinking. They're like, oh, well, if they did it and they're like similar to us, then maybe it would work for us.
Yeah. It's one of the things I really struggle with is that, like I'll chat to someone and I'll say, 2-day mental health first aid course, or we can do a blended online and, this is the investment. And people will be like, oh, yep. And they talk about, we can't really quite afford that at the moment. And I sit there and I go, but you're paying recruitment companies like 5, 10, 15, 20,000 to get someone on because you've just had a little bit of churn and burn in your business. Why have you had the churn and burn in your business, right? And, I always say, and you'd relate to this as well, Lauren, it's about like gyms, right? Gyms are always like in shopping centers and trying to get more members in. If they actually would focus the investment and the money and the time on the members in their community, they wouldn't actually have to do as much of that outbound because their members would be posting on Instagram, would be posting on their stories, would be saying to friends, hey, this is like an amazing gym. The community is fantastic. You've got to come and join. And you would just have lines out the door because people would just be coming through and being attracted. And it's like, whether it's a gym or whether it's an organization, it's having that organization and that environment of attraction where people want to work for you. People want to be within that environment.
Yeah, I like that analogy of the gym because it's so true. And it's actually a conversation I've had recently with my brother. He works in that space of corrective exercise. And I said to him, like, there's so many injuries and things that are coming forward in gyms and then people have to leave. And it's the same in workplaces. It's a mental injury or some sort of toxic workplace that creates them leaving, causes them to leave. And so your retention's really low. It's like, well, can we work on the problems that are causing them to leave, causing them to have injuries so we can stop that from happening? But I feel organizations think it's just easier to just get more people and just let them go. And maybe it's easier because they don't want to feel the feeling that comes to it when they realize what's actually happening.
Yeah.
When they actually sit and go, wow, we've created toxic cultures that people are leaving from, or we've caused mental health problems in our workers and that's why they're going, because that's hard one to swallow sometimes. And I think that's maybe a part of why they don't want to address the issue.
Yeah. And I think they see as, the Band-Aid approach is quicker and it's cheaper. But when you're buying 50 packets of Band-Aids, the Band-Aids are now more expensive than, one program. So I suppose it's, showing them the difference. Yes, you can keep going with Band-Aids. There's a hole, we'll plug it here. But the water's still going to find a leak eventually, unless you cover your bucket with Band-Aids and then you've got just a Band-Aid for a business essentially. Whereas if we, were to come in, we're able to fix the problem at the root cause right there and then, you don't need a Band-Aid anymore, and you're done. You know, you're set for however long.
You can't create a business or organization on shaky ground. Like,
Correct.
it's really about creating the strengths and the foundations from the ground and then nurturing it as it grows. Because I think people can grow too quickly in the organization too, and then they realize they've got all these problems. And then the organization will crumble. I think we'll see the rise in the workplaces that are really doing these sorts of things properly, you know, working on their well-being, looking after their teams. They're the ones that are going to last in the next 10, 20, 50 years, because it's become something that people are becoming aware of. People can leave your organization to work for those businesses so fast.
Correct. It's so competitive out there these days.
You know? So,
Yeah. And people are not necessarily looking for, we've gone to the days where I'm going to leave this job because I get more money over there. People are actually leaving their job for a job with less pay because they feel more valued at this position or at this new role. So that's where people
especially the new generations coming forward, like thinking about our generation and younger ones. We value totally different things. But I think the older generation, maybe the boomers, they want the money. Like, they just see the pay packet, they turn up to work, they get their work done, and they go home, and that's what they're in for. But then the people like us and in this generation, we value freedom. We value autonomy. There's just so many different aspects that come into retaining your staff now.
It comes right back to what motivates your staff, what does your staff value, and really just getting to know your staff. That's, you know, honestly the best way to fix things. Just get to know your staff. What do they want?
Yeah, 100%. And I think one of the key things I always say when I'm talking about, you know, mental health first aid and wellness and wellbeing in an organization and for people individually is, are you being reactive or proactive? Now, as human beings in organizations and as leaders, most people are reactive, right? And, you know, it saddens me from a mental health first aid perspective is when I've had people sit in my courses and they say, do you know what? I have been pleading with my boss to send me to this course for a good couple of years and really want to kind of, you know, cement it and put it into the foundation of our organization. And I said, oh, well, what changed? And they said, oh, well, 2 people within our team unfortunately took their life, right? So it was a reactive thing, not a proactive thing, you know, and that's two team members that sadly lost their lives, right? And obviously could have been experiencing completely, you know, different challenges. But in saying that, you know, I just sit there and I go, what if they would have had an environment where they could have said, hey, I need help, you know, and then it gives you a better, more loyal, more productive team member that's part of the team because they feel supported, not because of what they've just been through, but they feel supported that if they do reach a challenge. And is someone like that going to want to leave? No.
Yeah, it's true. It's like, I'm glad you said that, because now thinking about that is something that we commonly see is more people hire us, unfortunately, because they're being reactive. And it's our job to educate them and go, you know, you can have us when you just want to maintain and grow and improve, but it's not because something's happened.
Yeah.
You know, it's not because you're getting all these complaints that people are stressed or, you know, things are not working within the organization. You realize that Bob hasn't slept in 2 weeks. Because we have seen drastic things like that happening in the workplace. I'm like, whoa. And you bring it to light. You go, do you realize that some of your team are not sleeping and they're working 80 hours a week? Oh, are they? I'm like, you must know this. But because we do our audits and stuff, we, you know, fill in the gaps for them and I guess get information that they might not necessarily get from their team. So that's also a good reason, I think, to get external people into your business, is because we can see things from a different lens, and also people can trust us because they can be anonymous, right? They're not going to their boss directly to tell them that they're struggling as well. So that's always a good segue, I think, to get this ball rolling.
Yeah. I think one of the things I'd really love to get from you guys as well is talking about, like recently I was doing a mental health first aid refresher course for a quite prominent sporting organisation in Queensland. And, you know, they were talking to me about how their whole team, you know, right from bottom to top, have 3 hours a week where they call them 3-hour slots of hour of power. And it's really that they can get out, go for a walk. They can do something that kind of helps their wellness and well-being. And it was interesting. I said to them, okay, great. So how many of you do the 3 hours? And one of them was like, I'm pretty good. I do it. And I said, well, how about you start looking for ways to remind people that they've got to do this. They've got this opportunity to take 3 hours of doing stuff. And even putting something up and saying, hey, if anyone wants to do their hour of power today, let's go for a team walk, or let's go for a group walk at lunch, or let's catch up for lunch, or whatever it is, right? They can use it however they want. And I thought it was really, really good. I know there's organizations that are saying you can have 2 mental health days a year. No questions. You're not feeling great, you can go. I know organizations that are also putting in place that, they have 2 hours a year to go and see the GP, right? 2 paid hours where they can do this stuff. So there's a lot of great things that are coming through. What are some of the things that you're seeing that you've been impressed with, or that have kind of gone, wow, love that?
Yeah.
We were actually talking to a friend of ours on a podcast a couple of days ago, actually, Ed Ross, who is the founder of Trademark TX. And we did. And he was saying that a couple of years ago, they implemented the 4-day week. And my first question was to him, how did the staff take it? Because we've heard other organizations try, and inverted commas, that try to do it, but they went back to the 5-day week and said, well, how did your team take it? And he said, when we implemented it, I sat down with the team and I said, it's going to benefit all of us. I'm still going to pay you the 5 days, but if you get everything done in the 4 days, then you've got that day off to then do whatever you need to for your own mental health, spend time with your family, go out shopping, whatever. That is your day to do whatever. But there's one thing, and that one thing is you need to get everything done. If you don't get everything done within the week, then you've got to catch it up on the Friday. And I think that to me was like oh, wow. Okay. If a big company like Trademarks and TX can do it, and they're all around that mental health, why can't more businesses do that? But I think what the difference was, he sat down with the team and he said, at the end of the day, it's on you. The day is there. We're still going to pay you. You don't have to turn up. In fact, the office is going to be closed, but you've got to get the work done. Otherwise, you're doing it on the.
But I liked it was more of a team collaborative approach. Because he also said, well, we're all helping each other and leaning on each other too. So if, say, Karen has a big workload this week, so you think, well, she's not going to be able to do her 4 days, and I don't have as much. Can you take some off her plate? So it's more of a team working collaborative approach. So I liked that. But yeah, the 4-day week is definitely something. We've definitely, from doing a workshop, they then implemented the 2-hour getting paid a year to get their annual sort of blood tests and things like that from our stories. So that was really cool. Another company that we worked with started to do more one-on-ones with their team. So even just those sorts of changes, they thought, oh, I do one-on-ones, but it's just to basically grill them on their performance. And we're like, well, what if you could actually go through some of the stuff that we taught, but in scenarios that are very tailored to their individual job role? So then they said, okay, we're going to implement that. So then, the manager was talking to his team one-on-one and running through scenarios on how they can manage their stress in each different job role. Because we obviously delivered a workshop, but it's a bit hard to make sure that every person in that room could feel like they could see it happening in their role, if that makes sense. Because we had a lot of different roles in that room, and it was only a few hours. So that was a suggestion. And then they went away and they did it. And it was something that the team members felt heard. It's like, oh, I'm not just getting called into the boss's office to get grilled about my performance. So that's definitely something small, but it's actually huge.
Another one I just thought of, which is more cost effective. If businesses can't afford, and again, in inverted commas, to have the day off, or can't afford to bring everyone in for 1 hour, once a month to talk about X, Y, Z. Another company that we worked with, we literally gave them slips of paper and said, before you leave here, I want you to write a note to someone in this room to show that you're grateful for them. So they all did it in the room. And, for us there, we just thought it was an activity for the room. We actually then met one of the employees from that business at a first aid course, maybe 2-3 months later. And she said they're still doing that one thing every single week, where on the Monday, everyone gets a slip of paper and you have until the Friday to put it on either on their desk or in their little, I don't know what they called it, like a pigeonhole. Essentially, that's my teacher coming out, to put it in there. Yeah. And it's what she really liked about it is you never know what you're going to get. And it's always from a different person as well. And it just brings that little smile. She was saying it brought a smile to her face every single time that she received one. It's like, oh, I was seen when I did X, Y, Z. Or it's, oh, that person saw me do that and that made them feel good. That makes me feel good. Like just little things like that. It takes 30 seconds to write a note of gratitude to someone. And it brights someone up for an entire week.
I remember when we saw her at that CPR course, it was pretty amazing. I was like, oh, you worked for that company when you were there. And she's like, yeah. I said, oh, how are you going now? And she goes, you know what? On that day that I walked into your workshop, I was not in the mood. She was like, I'm so down. I was so flat. Couldn't be bothered. Why are these guys here? Had some resistance. And then she said, for the first time in a while, I walked out of there feeling lighter. I had a bit of a smile on my face. And she said, ever since then, I've really tapped into the gratitude more than just what you said. I remember her saying she's in charge of some team and she'd send out gratitude emails all the time, or finish the email with like a really good positive note to end on, instead of just, quickly getting that email done and it's quite blunt.
Regards.
Yeah. But really coming in again to that human-centeredness approach. And she really liked that. So I think sometimes it's about coming back to simple things, right? The foundation that we can forget. And we think that well-being has to be this complex strategy. But at the end of the day, it's not as complex as we think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Now, I know we could talk about some insights and some reflections and some tips and some tricks and things people could implement. But we'd be talking all day, right? But in September, you guys have, launching the first National Workplace Wellbeing Conference. Talk to me where the idea kind of sparked.
Yeah, the idea actually sparked sitting in someone else's conference, Ryan Tuckwood's National Sales Conference. And I remember halfway through that event, looking at Lauren, I went, do you think we could pull something off like this? Like, I think we could. Maybe not to the size of what Ryan had in the room. He had 1,000 people in the room then. But I said, could we get 200 people in the room to talk about well-being? Because that does not happen here in Australia. Like, where have you seen that? Yes, you might have, an hour keynote on well-being on for employees. But what about a whole day where we just give value to absolutely everyone who attends? They walk away with almost like a toolkit, essentially saying, you can go and implement this into your business tomorrow when you go back to the office to enhance performance, to enhance retention, and to enhance the culture of your organization. So I remember turning to Lauren, and I'm pretty sure Lauren had the exact same idea. Because and we're going to call it this, and it's going to be here. And it was literally maybe 2 weeks later, we started venue hunting. And so I think it was just one idea, and we almost borrowed the belief of Ryan, because Ryan had the belief when he first started his company going, I'm going to do this conference. So we're going, okay, let's borrow that belief, but we're not going to do it as a one day. We're doing it this year. Let's go in September. So I think that's where it's,
okay. Yeah. I see what you mean now.
That's where it has definitely.
We definitely had the same idea, because I remember you doing the same thing actually initially, and we both sort of looked at each other and it was like, do you know what I'm thinking, B1? So yeah, B2, I know what you're thinking. It was kind of one of those moments. And it's like, we can do this. And it felt like it was coming from the heart space rather than the brain. It wasn't like a logical business move. It was more of, actually, no, we need to do this, and we have the passion to do this. And why can't we create this space and make something different? Like, I know we've spoken to you about it, Steve, and it's the vision of creating something different rather than just next speaker, next slide, boring, next thing, walk out with all of this information. You're overloaded. You don't know where to start. It's like, actually, I want people to feel calm as soon as they step through the door, and they feel connected and a sense of belonging, and strategies that are clear and obvious and they can implement when they leave. We don't have a heap of speakers. We've selected them for a reason, so they can give you what you need instead of cutting out all the fluff,
Yeah. And I think when we're talking about the speakers and hand selecting them, essentially, every single person who we've got up on our stage has impacted us in some sort of way. And if they've impacted us and they share the same message as what they shared with us, with everyone else, then it's guaranteed that, they'll have the same results. So I think essentially that's why we've hand selected them as well. We've had so many people email us and send us messages online and say, hey, can I speak at your event? It's like, yeah, okay, let's have a look at your bio. Let's see what you do. You do a great thing, but I need to get to know you first. And then we've actually seen a lot of people just go quiet. We don't hear from them again. It's like, okay, well, clearly you don't want this, that badly. You're just seeing it as, I can get on someone's stage. Let's go. Whereas, everyone we've selected has impacted us in some sort of way. You'll be there, Steve. You'll be talking, and you've impacted us with your journey and what you're doing now. So like, Steve's going to be perfect candidate for, mental health awareness for sure.
Yeah. So talk to me, or talk to the listeners, people that are listening, they're going, is it for me? Is it going to be beneficial? Talk to me about, what you can't divulge everything, right? But what do you think people are going to walk away with?
I mean, the theme of the conference, and I feel, and we've spoken on this obviously, and that's looking at the selected speakers, is really how do you create that high performing team, but from a holistic, well-being, human-centered approach. It's about sort of shifting what we've seen as the social norm of how to do things and how to run, I guess, the corporate side of things. And it's like, how can we do things differently, but actually get better results? So that's probably, a good reason to come, is you're going to learn new things, and it's applicable for the individual because you're going to get so much out of it: emotional intelligence, how to build your own resilience, how to work on your own mental health. But then it's also going to be good for HR and for leaders and business owners to come, because then they can look at it from their organizational level and go, okay, how can we create a culture that has these things that are at the forefront? And that will lead to better performance,
Yeah. And I've had a few different conversations with people around the conference as well. It's like, oh, well, how do I know it's, for my organization? How do I know that, you're going to target my area? And the way that we've designed this, I think you've hit the nail on the head before, Lauren. It's for absolutely everyone. It doesn't matter if you're in education. It doesn't matter if you're in defense. It doesn't matter if you're in accounting. It doesn't matter if you are the nurse or the local postie. It's everything that applies is for you, the individual, but then also your organization, no matter what industry you're in. And I think that's what excites me as well. We see so many conferences, so many workshops where it's so targeted, so niched into, a marketing agency. If you're a marketing expert, then this is the conference or this is the thing you need to be in. With us, it's, hey, we're accepting everyone here because we know what we do and we know what the speakers do will help you and will literally help you thrive in your environment and your day-to-day life and work life as well.
I think if you're a human being and you're wanting to potentially do things differently at work and you want to show up better at work and at home, and you have things that, you can see you could change, and you're just generally interested in this side of workplace well-being, but also being a better human, showing up, growing, this conference is for you. It's that simple. It's just human-centeredness. We've said it so many times during podcasts, but it is true. And I think that's it. If you've got a heart beating in your chest right now, this conference is for you.
Yeah. And if you want to, I think like one of the key things in life is that you want to be better, you want to do better, right? You got to put yourself in the environments that allow you to thrive in that and also support you to kind of down that path. So I suppose attending a conference, and I've attended a lot of conferences and a lot of seminars for decades. The interesting thing for me is I always say it's not just the content, but it's also the side conversations and the lunch or the morning tea or the networking event conversations. And I say, like, you and you guys and us and we've connected. You don't kind of, there's no accidents in life, right? You're led to people, you're drawn to people, you connect with people. And I know everyone who attends the event will connect with people that will benefit not just their life, not just their business, but just them as a human being, because you're putting people that are being attracted to be more, do more, feel more, live more. That's coming out on the marketing version next week. So no, look, I'm really excited on my topic, from a mental health first aid perspective and kind of that panel discussion and also seeing, obviously, you just launched, the news that Lockie Stewart, record holder is going to be there. So I'm looking forward to catching up with Lockie as well and hearing his reflections on what he's just gone through, and he just continues to grow as we all do. But I know there's some absolutely awesome speakers that I just can't wait to kind of absorb and learn from and connect with as well, because we're all, as you said, everyone that's kind of there is someone that's impacted you and kind of helped you guys. And I think where we take that group of people and the help that we can give each other and the connections and the collaboration that can go moving forward, and we talk a lot about collaboration, is we can just kind of keep creating those ripples, but as a group, just kind of, start making those waves.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, we deliver workshops and it touches that organization. It keeps we just want to create more impact, right? And it keeps evolving our story and what we're doing. Like, how can we get different people from different organizations and different industries in one room and create that ripple effect, so then they go out to their organizations and be that ripple effect for that? You know what I mean? And also, I know a huge piece for us, and we've been talking about what's our why, what's our fire, what's our passion for all of it, is that when I look at my niece and nephew, you know what I mean, and they're 6 and 2, and I think I want you to come into a world where your workplace helps you thrive, both as an individual, but then also allow you to feel seen and heard and fulfilled. Like, I really do look at them and think, you're a huge piece of my why. We don't have children, but I love our niece and nephew to bits, right? And they're just so innocent. And I just think, I want you to grow up in a different world. I saw what my parents went through, what your parents, still kind of go through, I guess, in terms of their own mental health journey and their own well-being and their own workplaces. They're not brought up, they're not taught, and they're still not, unfortunately, on how to regulate their emotions, on how to show up and work on themselves and the mental health side of things, all of it. And it's affecting their life, right? Their alcohol consumption, their diet, their relationships, how connected they are in with themselves, all of these things. It's like, I want my niece and nephew to have a different world. So if we can be that ripple effect by having this conference and it all just to sort of explode and start from there, that excites me.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. So I love how you touch on the niece and nephew, the future generation. So what would you like to see a workplace and organizations look like in 10, 15, 20 years?
That's such a good question.
So we were actually discussing this just the other day. I actually turned to Lauren and said, we talk a lot about, creating this thriving workplace, but what does a thriving workplace actually look like? And we both looked at each other and went, it's actually different for every single workplace. But the thing that we both came to the conclusion of is that people enter that workplace, they're excited to go, they're happy, and they leave feeling exactly the same. They're not going there dragging their feet. They're not leaving there dragging their feet, bringing all this work home to then explode, inverted commas, again, into the home life because they're so stressed, because they're so worked up about what's happened. But I think what the number one thing we said was it's going to look different in every workplace, because if you're working at, say, Woolworths compared to BHB, you've got different challenges, yes. But the one thing it keeps coming back to is, well, there's humans working in Woolworths. Even if it's not a self-serve checkout, there's going to be a human there. And there's a human in BHB. That's the two things that are very similar. So if we can go in there, feel excited about going to work, come home feeling exactly the same, to then impact the family life as well in a positive way rather than a negative way, then for me, that is the future of work.
I think I want us to help create workplaces where people can show up and show their emotions and express themselves rather than feeling like they have to be bottled up. We talk to a lot of people and they say, well, the corporate world's black and white. I don't want that anymore. I want the corporate world to have a gray area. I don't know why it has to be this scenario where they just close the door at what's going on in their life and their emotions and everything that they bring with it as being a human. And they just have to do their work and then they have to go back home and somehow regulate themselves, right? But they don't have the tools to be able to even do that. And they've been beach balling these sorts of emotions that are quite heavy and dense for so long, which just affects their marriage. We're seeing divorce rates going through the roof. We're seeing, kids and issues with them and behavior. And it's just such a ripple effect. I think if we can, we spend so much time at work. If we can help people have the tools to regulate themselves, express themselves, but create that environment where they feel safe enough to do so, that's going to be a huge change and a huge shift.
100%.
And I think one of the key things I look at is, like, people say to me, oh, how do you kind of get into these vulnerable conversations? How do you have these conversations with people where they kind of open up? And I said, well, you've got to have the courage and you've got to take the first step, right? So, from an organization perspective, from a corporate perspective, if there's CEOs or leaders that are sitting out there and they want to implement wellness and wellbeing initiatives, they want to really have like a really mentally safe place for their teams. I would say that, what you need to do is you need to share the why you are implementing these wellness initiatives. You need to break the shell and kind of show your inner inner why and why you know that this is so passionate. Because I think if more leaders would stand up and actually say, CEOs and everyone's, kind of goes through burnout in those kind of workplaces, they go through their mental health challenges. But a lot of the time they're kind of put up on pedestals and it's like, oh, they don't experience this. They don't have problems with relationships. They don't have problems with this. But if they actually stood up and or did a video in organizations that are kind of worldwide or whatever and said, hey, we have an EAP, which is an employee assistance program, and this is why we had the EAP. I actually used the EAP myself, or I went through a mental health challenge myself. And actually people would go, wow, like, because it then encourages people that go, oh, okay, I'm not alone. I can put my hand up and reach out. Far out, the CEO of this company or the regional director or the sales director or whatever has just shared this. And then it encourages other people to go, oh, well, I can share and I can put my hand up and say, I'm not feeling right. And I think, it's taking that first step forward yourself. And then that encourages others to share their story.
Yeah, absolutely. That vulnerability piece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hit the nail on the head there, Steve, for sure.
Yeah, massively. So talk to me about if people want to reach out to either of you and, kind of, book you for a workshop, talk to you about what they can be doing from their workplace. Obviously, the first thing they've got to do is jump in and book a conference ticket for September. And obviously, we'll put those in the show notes. But where do they find you? Where do they reach you? What's the best way to connect?
Suppose we're both on LinkedIn. You can just search Lauren McGee or Jason Marshall, both there. That's an easiest way just to get straight to us. Otherwise, on Instagram, if you're an Instagram lover like myself, Workplace PWI is the place to go. Or if you just want to jump on the website, it's wpwi.org. You can reach out on all platforms.
Awesome. I love you both. Seriously, I always feel energized when I chat and we connect. So thanks for coming on. It's been great to have the dynamic of having a couple that are doing awesome things in that space, that have been through challenges together and obviously growing together, but also, having that impact in organizations and wanting to kind of, start their own ripples into organizations, into individuals in that well-being and wellness space, which is fantastic. So I'm looking forward to the September conference and obviously some of the networking events that, are leading up to that as well.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks,
Look
Steve.
forward to seeing you then.
Thanks for having us
All
on.
good. All right. Take care.